Next, I want to introduce Representative Sue Donovan from Bristol, who's going to talk about fair wages and the need for pay equity and a living wage for Rhode Islanders.
Thank you all for being here. This year, on average, each Rhode Island working woman will lose more than $7,000 to the wage gap. This gap has a serious lifelong effects on women and the families that their wages support. Lost wages mean women have less money to support themselves, to save, to invest, and to spend. Businesses and the economy suffer because of this lost income. Women and minority groups entered the labor force in ever-increasing numbers over the past generations, adding diversity to our workplaces. But despite this progress, what hasn't changed is the gap in wages that still exists between men and women, and especially women of color. The consequences of lower wages also affect retirement income, the very income needed to enjoy economic security as we age. The wage gap exists across all industries, all occupations, and all education levels. When all other differences are factored in, differences in experience, education, region, and union membership, researchers conclude that discrimination and unconscious bias continue to affect our wages. Fortunately, there are policies that would help, like passing the Fair Pay Act that we're proposing this year. This bill clarifies and strengthens existing equal pay protections and eliminates practices that perpetuate the pay gap. For example, it prohibits employers from paying workers differently, including by sex, race, or other protected class, without a clearly documented difference in skills. The Fair Pay Act requires the employer to disclose the salary range for the position sought and removes past salary history as a consideration to determine current pay. This legislation bans policies that prevent workers from discussing their pay with each other. The argument that implementing pay equity legislation is not necessary and will harm the economy is false. What harms the economy and penalizes families, according to the Economic Opportunity Employment Commission, is the systematic underpayment of some people because of their sex, race, or ethnicity. Despite the existing Equal Pay Act, wage discrimination laws are poorly enforced and cases are difficult to win. Stronger legislation is needed to ease the burden of filing claims and clarify the right to pay equity. Women work just as hard as men to advance careers and support families. If we are serious about economic equality for women and people of color and supporting working families, we need to address the practices that continue to allow employers to discriminate against employees and perpetuate the wage gap. Rhode Island needs the Fair Pay Act.